It's really difficult for mainstream, let's say cable outlets, to talk about things like income inequality, wealth inequality, when the advertisers that are funding their shows are the same corporations that want to ensure that the same system continues. So I think when people watch digital media or new media, they get a completely different message. They focus on the issues that matter or resonate more with the constituency.
That was me on CNN's Reliable Sources with Brian Stelter back in 2015. I was sure I wouldn't be invited back on the show because I essentially walked into CNN's house and accused them of neglecting important news stories due to the way they're funded by corporate advertisers and sponsors. I've actually been extremely critical of CNN over the past several years. For instance, I felt a great deal of frustration, as many progressives did, over the outlet showing Trump's empty podium rather than Bernie's speech in the 2016 primaries. They gave Trump so much free press because they found him entertaining, good for ratings, and didn't think he'd actually win the election. Oops. More recently, I was notably vicious after finding out that CNN hired Sarah Isgur, a GOP operative who worked alongside Jeff Sessions with no journalistic experience, as a political editor of all things. Look, before I toss to this embarrassingly angry clip of myself, just keep in mind that a political editor has editorial control, which I felt was inappropriate for someone who had just ended her stint working in Trump's administration. She even had to take an oath of loyalty to work in the White House.
What is she gonna bring to the table? What does she bring to the table? Are you hoping that hiring some of Trump's cronies and some of these right-wing hacks, maybe Trump will stop attacking you so much? CNN's pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. Oftentimes Cenk's the one who goes on these rants on the show, and I get a little uncomfortable, I gotta be honest with you. But you know what? No more getting uncomfortable. You're absolutely right. CNN is not legitimate at all, at all.
But soon after TYT published that video, CNN changed course in a pretty shocking way.
CNN has announced that a former spokeswoman for Jeff Sessions, her name is Sarah Isgur, will no longer have an editorial role with the 2020 election coverage. In fact, she tweeted about this herself, saying, "It's been a great vacation, but I'm back on Twitter, who cares? And news, I will go on CNN as a political analyst instead. We'll start next month on air and online. See y'all soon."
All right, that was a good sign, I'm into it. Then, all of a sudden, Chris Cuomo started having Cenk Uygur on his show, Cuomo Prime Time, which effectively broke what I believed was a mainstream media ban on progressives. In this next clip, Cenk debates Trump campaigner Kayleigh McEnany on how Trump admitted during a CBS interview that he wouldn't go to the FBI if a foreign government presented dirt on his political opponents.
Once he receives that information, he's already broken the law. It's like saying, well, I would rob the bank, then I would go to the police and told them I robbed the bank. Well, then you still go to jail.
Do you at all care about the Russian misinformation from a Russian Kremlin official paid for by the DNC, or do you just not care because it's the DNC?
So you know what you guys love to do is deflection.
Right, you don't care.
You're attacking people. No, hold on. You're attacking people that are not in government right now, and you're going after Steele
so they're not in government.
Hillary Clinton, who are not in power. Look at what she's trying to do: is shift the debate. We're talking about how the president of the United States said you shouldn't work with the FBI, and she's going squirrel.
I love how McEnany tried to accuse us, or accuse Cenk specifically, of not being tough on the DNC. She apparently doesn't know us, she apparently doesn't watch the show. Obviously, that Cuomo primetime appearance was great for Cenk, but it's even better for the progressive movement because we finally get some representation in these political debates. Oftentimes, the conversation is devastatingly limited between hardcore Republicans and centrist Democrats. Over the weekend, to my surprise, Brian Stelter invited me back on his show Reliable Sources to discuss several topics. Remember, I hadn't been on since 2015 and I assumed I would never get invited back again. What really stood out to me though was Stelter's own critique of the mainstream press.
We have to talk about the problem with headlines. We are 2.5 years into the Trump presidency, and news outlets are still putting Trump's far-fetched and false assertions right in the headlines, and sometimes right on the TV banners. What is going on? I mean, yes, what the president says is oftentimes newsworthy. He makes a ton of news, but reporters keep repeating his nonsense and noise without calling it that. So let me show you some specific examples from this week where the headlines came first and then the fact checking came later. Trump, for example, now claiming he's delaying those immigration raids across the country for 2 weeks. But he originally tweeted out that millions of people would be deported starting next week. Millions of people. Now that's nonsense, according to numerous news reports. The plan was only to target about 2,000 people. But many news outlets, especially on Fox, people on Fox, ran with that millions quote, put it in headlines, put it in banners like it was true.
This is one of the first times I've heard anyone in the news not only call this out, but refer to Trump as a liar, because you'll hear, oh, he's misleading the public, but you'll never hear anyone in journalism just straight up say, no, he's lying.
Oh, I think that's been going on for a while. You don't think so?
I think that he gets treated with kid gloves when it comes to that particular word. And I think part of that is because some reporters feel and some editors feel that they might be considered, subjective in saying that, but I think that there's evidence to prove that he has lied over and over again.
Look at Brian Stelter with the on-point criticism of the mainstream media. Now, TYT has been bringing up this issue since before I even started working at TYT. In 2007 was when I started, and before then, Cenk shared his utter frustration in this next clip.
That's where I learned. Story in USA Today. Bush says he's made America safe. That's the headline.
Well, okay, James, you're talking about one
within
story.
The article are never goddamn mentioned in the goddamn headline.
All right, it's impossible to talk to you about
something. Here, I'll show it to you.
I mean, USA Today. You're not talking about USA Today. You're talking about one.
Show the goddamn paper right here, okay?
What does
USA safer? Bush says. Picture. Headline, USA safer, Bush says.
Okay.
USA Today, you suck. You are a terrible newspaper.
It seems like CNN also learned from its 2016 election mistakes, because the network didn't carry Trump's kickoff rally speech in Orlando last week. Fox News host and conservative commentator Howard Kurtz called the move classless, but I loved it. It was the right move because Trump was simply campaigning. He wasn't acting as president in his official capacity. Look, is CNN perfect? Of course not. Is TYT perfect? I wish I could say yes, but we get things wrong time to time as well. The question is whether or not members of the media learn from their mistakes. TYT and our audience started applying a great deal of pressure toward the mainstream press to finally start doing the right thing, and I think it's important to reward the improvements with positive reinforcement. If we're willing to fight and call the media out on what we think is unethical or false equivocations, some might be willing to listen. I want to thank Brian Stelter because it appears he is listening. Credit where credit is due.